So, as Marcel pointed out, I'm very pleased to introduce Dr. Martin Zimmermann, who is in charge of all of the strategy across all of Daimler's businesses, as well as business innovation. So, Dr. Zimmermann, you have a tough job. Not only is the technology inside of cars changing, but the way people perceive cars, the way people use cars is changing. In fact, some young people today don't aspire to own cars. They just want to use them when they need them. So how are you adapting your company and your strategy to embrace those changes?
Well, first of all, I think it's a tough job, but it's also an exciting job. Challenges and changes always are exciting. And it's a big opportunity, I think, for us in particular at Mercedes and at Daimler, because we have always been at the forefront of shaping the industry. So what we see is happening is that, in fact, customers are changing the way how they see the car, how they want to use mobility. We see that there's still an unbroken need for individual mobility, even increasing if you look at emerging markets. But while there we have the clear need to organize mobility without getting stuck car by car in big cities, in mega cities. How you organize that. In the Western world more, we have the need to look at different values. People don't look at the car as a status symbol anymore, but basically how can they use it in an easy way to move from A to B as part of their lifestyle. And around that, it's really about making mobility happen and making mobility work. So it's, to a certain degree, the car still at the core of our offering, but there are many additional elements which need to be added in order to have the car connected to a bigger system, to a mobility system for our customers.
So do you have to look to the tech industry? Do you have to look to a model like, say, Apple? And by that I mean the integration of hardware with services to be successful going forward?
Sure, I think that's quite a good analogy because I think Apple has really a product at its core, but it has built really a platform for many additional services, and people are really part of that community, and then they use the product in a different way, but they have many different additional aspects. And I see our industry evolving a similar way. We have a very high-tech product which enables all that connectivity to other parts, to normal communication, to entertainment opportunities, but also from car to car in order to organize mobility. At the same time, again, we need to add all these services. And at the end, we want our customers, Mercedes-Benz customers, to be part of this overall community, be able to go for individual mobility, either by owning a car and driving it wherever they like it, or by being part of a network where they have the opportunity to get a car basically at their fingertips if they need it but don't own it, or to basically share a ride or whatever. So many different services around it to make individual mobility possible as part of their, let's say, normal life and not as something where you go from A to B.
So let's look at some specific examples of that. Now, Daimler launched Car2Go, which is a car sharing service in Ulm and Aachen, I believe, right?
Car2Go is currently in Ulm and in Austin, in Texas.
Okay. And and around that, you have launched a social networking service called Car Together that allows people who don't know each other to find each other and share rides. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us what you've learned through these trials about consumer behavior and the future of cars?
Yeah. So what we see is, if you look at Car Together, maybe I start that way, which is basically a platform where you connect ride offerings to people looking for a ride from A to B at any point in time. That basically people use it, or there is a big interest from people where you would expect a big interest, which is, let's say, the Facebook community. People are used to social communities and are accustomed to the technology and feel happy to use that. That's about less than 50% of the users which we see in Ulm and Aachen today. And that was quite surprising to us because the remainder of the people are really looking for a new way basically of doing their mobility, because they are not part of Facebook or other communities so far, but are basically becoming part of, let's say, our own, let's say, proprietary Car Together network. And at the same time, they are looking for both the ride as well as the social opportunity to have a chat while riding, and obviously doing that in a very efficient way. Don't worry about a parking space, don't worry about owning a car, cleaning a car, fueling a car, whatever. And I think that's true for both sides, the guy who is offering the ride as well as the person who is basically taking the ride.
And didn't your research show that like a surprising number of people over 50 were actually interested in using this kind of thing, but they're not Facebook users, so they use your proprietary social network to connect to the service?
Yes. Currently we have about 7-8% of users over 50, and we, however, and I'm pretty convinced we will increase that dramatically. What was interesting when we launched it in Ulm in September, we had almost half of the people coming to us were basically interested, well, basically from, let's say, the elderly community, I would say, in quotes, my age and above, I would say, to a certain degree, who basically said, well, it's a big opportunity. We don't need to own a car anymore. We can still interact in a social way, and it's an additional way of life for us. Obviously, the big challenge for us, which we see, is how do you make sure that people can use that efficiently and very easily, because they have a different access to those, let's say, technologies than the young guys who basically are used to Facebook every day, in and out.
So from a social perspective, what sort of information were people comfortable with sharing and knowing about the other person before accepting a ride?
That's the tricky part. What we know is what you can't do, obviously, is you basically say if you want to have a ride, you give your picture and your telephone number and somebody will pick you up, because especially, and that's understandable, females are not very happy to say I give it to somebody I don't even know. So we have to find ways, and that's what we are experimenting with in order to identify or make an identification possible between the driver and the rider without basically giving away too much personal information, at least initially. And the second thing, I think, is we have to make people comfortable using that platform, that is safe. We are using a rating system, obviously, for drivers also, so the riders will rate the drivers in terms of not only driving style, but also, did you feel comfortable? Was there any element where you said, okay, this is not okay? And okay, this is our way to manage that we at least get rid of those people whom we don't want to have on the platform. Okay,
and so do you have plans to expand this service to other cities? So what's the timetable on that?
Sure. For Car Together, we clearly have that plan, but we feel we still need to learn a little bit more before we can launch it in a broader way. And again, it's going to be part of a bigger bundle like Car2Go and other services which will come and offer really a much broader opportunity for our customers to get access to individual mobility in a different way.
Okay. Now, the Car2Go service for the moment is based on not based on electric cars, right? It's just cars with regular fuel emission systems. Are there any plans to offer electric cars on a kind of rental basis like that in the future?
Sure, we are working on that, and I would assume in the next 12 months you will see at least one city where we are launching Car2Go with electric cars only. Until then, we'll have in some of the cities, we're now again operating in Ulm and in Austin in Texas, and we are coming to Hamburg in the first half year of 2011. We are bringing in some electric vehicles at least to test. But this is clearly the ultimate goal, that we basically have purely electric operation, because that is basically meeting the urban needs of the cities, but also of our drivers, and it's the best application for the cities there.
How long do you think it'll be before we see the adoption of electric cars on a massive scale?
I think it will take quite a while until it will be commonplace, because we still see a lot of hurdles on the infrastructure side. People need to get used to that technology. I was just talking to somebody saying, okay, electric vehicles are great, but what's the range? If you talk about 160 kilometers of range, if you're used to a normal car, you say, okay, this is too little. This is when I normally just go to a fuel station when I still have 160 kilometers left. So here you start when you're fully filled up. So it's a different way of life. What we see from our tests, which we have made, and pilots, we are running quite a fleet in London, for example, of electric smarts, that people get used to that very quickly because they understand that they are not really needing that range. They understand how to use it, they understand how reliable it is, and then they adjust their let's say, charging pattern, their usage pattern to that in an easy way. What we will do is, and what we are doing is obviously adding a lot of information inside the car and making it easy for the people to see when do you have to charge, what kind of driving style is appropriate for you, where is a free charging station, not only one, but where is a free one, can I book it, and other things. This is all what we are currently working on, to have that as a package for the users, to make it really convenient for them to use it and easy to adjust to that new way of driving.
By the way, if anybody is curious in testing out what it's like to drive an electric car, Mercedes is making 2 cars available here for test drives, and you can go up at the entrance or at the speakers lounge and sign up for a test drive. Associated with electric cars is fuel cell technology, where, this is a technology that's been around for a while, it's been touted, it's disappointed in some ways, and now it's being looked at again. What's your take on this technology? How long do we wait to see this in cars?
Well, obviously it's a big innovation, so you can never predict when exactly it will happen, but what we know in the last couple of years, we have made tremendous advancements here in terms of reduction in costs, in terms of packages, to bring that into a very small package inside the car, but also in terms of reliability, in terms of range and so on. So today you can use a fuel cell vehicle, drive it for 400, 600 kilometers without any problems in any kind of climate conditions. Refueling takes like 2 minutes, so less or more or less about what you also would use to refuel a normal car. So we have solved many of these issues. Now it's about industrializing that, and it's about building the infrastructure. So what we are looking at is towards the end of the decade to really have a serious number of vehicles on the road, serious meaning way more than 100,000 in major regions. And in order to get that, what we are looking at is and working on is also whether we can also convince some other car manufacturers to join us in our drive to develop fuel cell vehicles, really, because we feel we need more than one car manufacturer to really enable others to come to us and build the infrastructure. And without the infrastructure, obviously, it's very difficult to sell the concept. But it's an ideal concept, especially for, let's say, vehicles like our C-Class, where a purely battery electric vehicle, battery electric powertrain is not really efficient, and a fuel cell powertrain would be perfect for that kind of usage.
Now, obviously, all the car makers are under huge pressure to make cars more efficient, to reduce emissions, etc. How do you see your company differentiating itself from your competitors when it comes to drivetrain technology, when it comes to electric cars, etc.? How are you positioning your company in the market?
Well, I think overall, again, as I said, we always look at the whole market and say, how can we shape industry and how can we offer solutions to our customers which really are fitting their needs? What we see is, and what we are working is on a number of different technologies, because we feel there will be different technologies needed for different types of applications. While we see that some of our competitors are focusing pretty much on one or the other technology. Give you an example, we basically see in principle 4 big segments. One segment is battery electric vehicles. These are mainly for city applications where you have a limited range by definition, and where you can drive zero emission, basically on a zero emission base, which is also perfect here. Second one, and these are typically smaller vehicles because when you drive around in the city, you normally don't necessarily need a huge vehicle. Then you have the vehicles which are used more on intercity basis or a regional basis, a little bit larger normally. It would be like an A-class, B-class, but you would drive from Stuttgart to Munich maybe sometimes, and obviously around Stuttgart or around Munich and so on. Here we are looking for range extenders, which basically means we have a battery electric drive, but we have also a normal, let's say normally a diesel or gasoline engine inside, a small one, which could recharge the battery while you are going. So you can drive zero emission in the city, and when you're outside the city, you can recharge the battery. When you arrive in Munich, for example, you have your battery charged up again and can go in zero emission. Then we have the next bigger segment, which is more like, for example, our C-Class, where you drive also occasionally longer distances, and there we assume that powertrains like fuel cell are optimal, fuel cell powertrains. And then you have the very large vehicles, E-Class, S-Class, where we are going for plug-in hybrid solutions, where you again can drive locally zero emission, but then when you're on a highway, you have, let's say, not your normal powertrain, and you can go as easy as you're using it today.
Okay, so you've outlined how you differentiate yourself on making the cars more efficient. Now, how about how you make the cars more cool? So everybody's like read about the Google driverless car. Is that something that we could envision in the future? Or if that's still really far off, what kind of near-term, new types of really cool services, assisted driving services, can we envision?
Well, I think it will take quite a while until we see driverless cars on the road. Frankly, I don't see that in the near future. But what we'll see is that we will see many additional elements. Like what you mentioned, you see assistance in terms of, let's say, safety issues or making driving a lot easier, what we have today already partially, like distance control, side lane change assisting, or basically also one of the newest ones, that a camera basically can detect the speed limit signs, and you have always, wherever you go, you know exactly what the speed limit is, which can make you nervous also if you're going too fast, obviously. But this is something which helps you to make it easier. Then there are other things which make it easier for you to stay connected and to just basically be part of the normal life when you're driving. Like when you want to go to a restaurant or whatever, you very quickly get the information, you very quickly, and without you basically typing something in, you know where to go, your car basically takes you there. Nevertheless, we see that you still need to drive yourself, and probably want to drive yourself, but you are supported in a way which makes it very easy, and where you're connected to your normal life, let's say, all the time. So that's one element. The other element which we feel makes us cool is obviously going beyond the car into the mobility concepts like Car2Go, which we feel is a very important additional element here.
Now, coming up with these new concepts, these new services, it's something new and very different for the company. And you're in charge of business innovation. So how do you take a company that's like 130...
We are celebrating 125 years next week.
125 years old. How do you keep on the cutting edge? How do you ensure that there's like a startup mentality inside the company and continue to be creative and make sure that all those, zillions of patents that you take out are translated into real services that actually resonate with consumers?
Well, there are two ways. I think one is the product side. If you talk about product innovations, features, here it's really working very strongly on processes to make things better, I would say. There's no ideal solution, but screening what you have and then having special processes to bring it to the market very quickly. So with every innovation, with every idea we have, we very quickly decide what's the vehicle it will be in and when. And then we have what we call blue light innovations, where we have even a special process to bring them from an idea status into the vehicle. For example, we have a number of such blue light innovations for the next S-Class, which will come out in 2 years. And this helps us to keep focus also on the market application and then speed up. The other thing is business innovation, which is more about the different type of business model or service around the car normally. And here what we created is inside our company a little department where we basically took some people from our company, I would say very promising talents and very dynamic people who are tasked or who are tasked basically to look at opportunities which are normally we have ideas from within the company, but basically think about what could be a business model to make them work, who are tasked to very quickly design a prototype, test it in the real world, very quickly decide whether it's okay to go further, spend more money and go further, or to kill it, and then go from a rapid prototyping phase basically very quickly to a real-life test. We have gone through this, for example, with Car2Go in the last 2 years, from the very first idea to making the first prototype, let's say technical prototype in Ulm, now in Austin. Now we will go commercially to Hamburg and to many other cities in the next couple of years. So this has gone through, and this is our experience, that you have to keep it a little bit separate and protect it from the normal processes. You have to provide separate budget, but it's still part of the company. Otherwise, I think there would be kind of a not invented here syndrome, which would kill it also.
Okay, that's pretty tricky. Does anybody in the audience have questions for Dr. Zimmermann about the future of cars? Nothing? Mobile services, anything? No? Okay. what do you see as the biggest challenge for your company and for the auto industry going forward?
I would say the biggest challenge is probably to be responsive to the changes in the world and to the different ways how cars are being used. It's difficult for us, obviously, to think about a concept. Let's say, for example, take Beijing, in a city where you have many cars and already today, and where we exactly know if we have the same car density as we would have it in Germany or in other cities, we wouldn't enable mobility at all. So thinking about that, how can we enable mobility? What do we need to do to a certain degree, even allowing or risking cannibalization of the traditional car, but enabling mobility and making sure that we really fulfill the need, which is eventually coming from the market, from the customers. This, I think, is the biggest challenge, to think beyond the traditional car into the solutions for our customers and for the cities and the world, basically.
Okay, well, with that, I would like to thank Dr. Zimmermann, and I would ask to give him a special thank you because today is his birthday and he's spending it here with us.